I'm going to talk about being united. This is actually part 2, but I'm going to do a bit of a summary before we move on. But I can't help but telling you this story, which I've said before, but it's just so amazing. Many years ago, there were some monks and they lived in a monastery, and it was a thriving monastery and everything was going really, really well. But over the years, the monks got older and older, and there were 5 monks left, and they were all over 70, and that was all that remained in the monastery. And they were really, really worried about what would happen to the monastery. And so they went on a trek to go and see a hermit. And they went to this hermit and they explained all their concerns. And I said, we just don't know what to do. And he goes, sorry, can't answer. Just got one thing to say to you. One of you is an apostle of God. And they looked at each other and thought, And they went back to the monastery. And days went by and each of them were mulling over what he'd said. One of you is an apostle of God. And thought, could it be Thomas? Thomas is really wise. Could it be Thomas? Or could it be Harold? Now, Harold is crotchety. Can't be Harold. Can't be Harold. But then again, he is always right. Could it be the abbot? No, it can't be the abbot. He's a bit crotchety too. Can't be the abbot. Could it be Philip? No, Philip's really shy. Could it be me? Ordinary me. And over time, they mulled and they thought about, could it be so-and-so, could it be so-and-so? And what happened was the whole atmosphere changed. They were honouring and respectful as they thought, I wonder if Thomas is an apostle of God. I wonder if so-and-so is. And the monastery was right on the edge of a forest, and people would come and bring their picnics to the forest. And the people came and they looked at the monastery and they looked at the way that the monks were treating each other and the atmosphere. And they brought their friends, and their friends came and picnicked by the monastery and they looked. And then they got closer and more people came. And then people started to go to the monastery because the atmosphere has changed. And over time, it was a hustling, bustling, positive, lovely, respectful place where more and more people gathered and came in because could one of them be an apostle of God? And I love that story because it really demonstrates the difference of how we treat each other with respect, honour, and how we are united, and how people see the difference and want to be part of it because of how we treat one another. And Jesus prayed in John 17 this prayer: my prayer is not for them alone. I pray also for those who will believe in me through their message, that all of them may be one, Father, just as you are in me and I am in you. May they also be in us, so that the world may believe that you have sent me. I have given them the glory that you gave me, that they may be one as we are one. I in them and you in me, so that they may be brought to complete unity. Then the world will know that you have sent me and have loved them even as you've loved me. Those were the last words of Jesus. And people's last words are really, really crucial and important. And often people hang on to people's last words because of the depth. And out of all of the things that Jesus could have made an emphasis before he went to the cross, he chose unity, that we may be one. Why should we be one? In John it says, because anybody who claims to live in God's light and hates his brother or sister is still in the dark. 2, in Luke it says, any kingdom divided against itself can't stand. And then in Matthew, they were asking Jesus, all of these rules, all these commandments, what is the biggest commandment? And Jesus said, love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul and mind, and love your neighbour as yourself. That is why we should be one, because of those 3 reasons. And Jesus experiences as part of the Trinity that feeling of oneness with God the Father, the Son and the Holy Spirit, all together. And as we said in part 1, at the very beginning of time in Genesis, God, Father, Son, the Trinity say, let us together make man in our own image. The Trinity is one, and we are made in the image of God. We are made for Trinity. We are made for unity, and we are invited into that. It's what we were made for. And we said in part 1 that each part of the characteristics of the Trinity we can learn something from. From the Holy Spirit, we can learn the fact that he always points people to Jesus. He always reminds us of what Jesus has said. His constant action is to focus people on Jesus. And he goes, listen to him, look at him. We said that with Jesus being born as a king, and yet he was humble. He was a servant, and he said, greater love has no man than he lays down his life for his friend. Jesus came to serve, and Jesus came in humility. The Father only speaks in the New Testament twice, once at Jesus' baptism and once at the Transfiguration. And he doesn't go, da-da, here I am God. He points totally to his Son, Jesus, and said, this is my beloved Son, in whom I am well pleased. And God the Father speaks that over the Son before the Son did anything at all. So those are the things we can learn from the Trinity. And Dallas Willard says this: the whole blessed Trinity is shy. Each member of the Trinity points faithfully and selflessly to the other in this gracious, eternal cycle of love. The Son submits to the Father loves to glorify the Son, and the Son is driven by the Spirit, and the Spirit reminds everyone of the Son. The Father also sent the Spirit, and this endless, eternal, humble, gentle, loving unity. So those are some of the things that we covered in part 1. But as we move into the next part 2, the thing that I really want to emphasize is we've said why unity is important, but we're going to say what difference it can make to us, to ourselves, to our families, and to our community. But before we move on to that, what I'm really interested in is the fact that the Father says how much he loves his Son. And when we have Jesus in us, when we find Jesus, when we decide to follow Jesus, the Trinity is within us. And the same love that God the Father shows to his Son is the same love that God the Father loves you and loves me. And you see, when we know that we are really, really loved, it changes the way we behave. It helps us be united with others, because when we know we're loved, we feel secure, we feel valued, we feel part. So if we can grasp some of the amazingness of how God the Father loves us, it will change the way we behave. Paul, when he speaks in Ephesians, he says, I pray for you, Ephesians, that you just know how much God loves you. And it says that in Ephesians 3:16, this prayer. And he says, I pray that you, being rooted and established in love, may have power together with all the Lord's holy people to grasp how wide and long and high and deep is the love of Christ, and to know his love that surpasses all knowledge, that you may be filled to the measure of the fullness of God. May you and may I know this love, and maybe look up Ephesians 3 and maybe pray it over yourself, that you would know how much you're loved. And out of this love, we are invited into this community that loves so unimaginatively, no, not unimaginatively, wholly even. So what good can come out of unity? And as I've brainstormed some points, these are the ones that came to mind. Freedom comes from unity. Release. Disunity, it reduces us, it restricts us, but unity, it builds us up. With unity, you don't have to watch your own back because someone else is watching it for you. With unity, there's commanded blessing. We're free to be truly who we are. We don't have to be like others. With unity, we're not threatened, and we have a kingdom mentality. So today, let's look at practically how can I be united in my everyday walk. Point 1, good communication. Because poor communication often causes disunity. So with good communication, it's really good to slow things down. When we rush, we can communicate poorly, whether that is by the way we speak or even if it's by the way we text or email. In James, it says, everyone should be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to become angry. So slow things down. When you're irate and when you're irritated or in an argument or something like that, your adrenaline rushes. And when your adrenaline rushes, it actually impedes your thought processes. So slow things down, calm yourself down, and avoid miscommunication. Avoid trying to text while you're doing something else because you can read things and receive things wrong. Maybe if it's a really tricky topic, maybe choose to do it face-to-face or by phone so people can understand your tone. However, the converse can sometimes be true because sometimes if you have time to pause and think about your thought processes and write it in an email or write it in a text, sometimes you can communicate better. So, point 1, for good communication helps unity. 2, talk to God about it before you talk to others. And that might sound really just flippant, but really, really do try. I know when I try, it does help. And if I forget, it does hinder. So talk to God about this issue before you talk to others. 3, be realistic, not idealistic. Be realistic, not idealistic. Remember, you're not perfect, and neither am I. We all make mistakes, and we all need God's mercy. 4, celebrate the differences. Celebrate the differences in maybe your character, your achievements, the way other people work. Celebrate your differences. Years ago, I was in this team meeting, and we needed to make quite a difficult decision. In the team meeting, 3 people like verbal processors. They just process by verbally talking about it. But in the same meeting, there are 2 people that are really silent processors. They need time and silence to think, to come up and process really the answer. So what we decided to do was, after us verbal processors had spoken out loud about it, we went in the other room, into the kitchen and made a coffee and left the silent processors to silently process. And then we gathered together and the result was phenomenal. The clarity was phenomenal because we just celebrated each other's differences and let people work within their gifts and within their differences. So point 5, be others-centered, not self-centered. Be selfless, not selfish. So be others-centered, not self-centered. In Philippians, it says, don't do anything out of selfish ambition or vain conceit, but in humility, consider others better than yourselves. So be others-centered, not self-centered. Point 6, resolve conflict. Just because you push it under the carpet, just because you ignore it, doesn't mean it's not there. So resolve conflict, have a go. A few weeks ago, someone came up to me and they said, Hayley, when you said that, it made me feel like this. And I went, oh, you're joking. When I said that, I actually meant this. And they went, no way. And I said, yeah. Oh gosh, but that changes my whole thought on that. That makes me feel really good instead of the opposite. And I went, oh, I'm really sorry, but that's really what I meant. You know, we could have both avoided each other. I wouldn't have known there was anything wrong, and that person would have carried on living offended by what I said. But instead of avoiding the conflict, they were brave enough to say, when you said this, it made me feel like that. What did you mean? Oh, my life, it's revolutionary. So resolve conflicts, don't avoid them. Point 7, don't make decisions based on unproven facts. Make sure you get your facts right before you move on. Point 8 to good keeping unity and maintaining unity. Refuse to gossip. Refuse to gossip. Talk to people, not about people. I was thinking about this, an example of this next point, and my son Dan was isolating with us with COVID. And he said, "What are you doing, Mum?" And I said, "I'm trying to think of an example." And he says, "I've got one." So I said, "Okay." So this is his example, because I'm not into football, but he is. In the 2004-2005 Premier League, Aston Villa were playing Newcastle United. And for those non-footballers of you, that's 11 aside, okay? So, but at one point in the game, one of the Newcastle team members got sent off, which left 11 Aston Villa to 10 Newcastle Newcastle players. Then, believe it or not, they rivaled and the game went on and the momentum went on. But then suddenly, two of the Newcastle players started to pull each other's shirts. Then they started to fight. Yeah, full-blown fight. Then they got sent off. This left, yes, are you good at maths? This left 11 Aston Villa fans and 8 Newcastle, so Aston Villa and Newcastle United players. So, out of Aston Villa and Newcastle, who do you think won? Yeah, Aston Villa won. So point 9, remember, Satan loves us to fight with each other. Satan loves us to fight with each other. Newcastle lost. They had infighting when they're on the same team. Satan loves us to fight against each other. And point 10, look to God. He really does help us in our unity. He helps us know that we're loved, and through that we can love others. So that's 10 points to unity. But then I was looking, and Josh Daffin talks about 3 practical steps to unity in the church. But you can also apply this to unity in your workplace. Point 1, determine that the mission truly is more important than your preference. The mission is more important than your preference. And we need to be united with the mission that Jesus has given us. Point 2, he says, have skin on the game. I was thinking, what's skin on the game? You know, if you've ever been in a workplace and, oh gosh, everything's gone wrong and you've got this deadline and you've got to hit this deadline by this point and you're pulling all-nighters and everyone's mucking in, something amazing happens when, yes, you hit that deadline and you achieve it as a team. Because shared sacrifice creates a powerful bond of unity. And when you sacrifice, you become unified even more. He goes on to say that when you've got skin in the game in the church, it makes a difference. And how do you have skin in the game? He said, volunteer in your church, attend your church, give generously to the mission, to the fund of the ministry, and bring people that don't normally go to church. He said it will completely change your perception when you bring someone here in who's not part of the church. So he says to be unified, have skin on the game and have shared sacrifice and get involved. And point 3, he says, for your unity in your workplace or unity in your church, he says, instead of criticising, be curious. Instead of criticising, be curious. Years and years ago, when I was first married, your bills used to come through the door in the post. And the bill would come through the door and it went, Mr. Robert Knock. And I thought, okay. And then the electric bill came and it was Mr. Robert Knock. And I thought, And then another bill came and it was Mr. Robert Knock. And I thought, I got a really, really high rate and really, really, really annoyed. And so I let him know it. And I said, why is it that all the bills come in your name? And I kept on and on and on. And eventually when I ran out of steam, he goes, in his gentle, silent kind of way, said, I did that because money's really tight. And if anything ever happened and we couldn't pay the bills, it would be me that would have to solve it. It would be me that would go to prison or whatever. Oh, my life, I felt so bad. So instead of criticising, be curious. So what difference will this unity make? What would we see with unity? What difference will unity make to my family, my church, and to me? In unity, you flourish. Where difference is celebrated, you flourish. It's an encouraging environment. And in encouragement, your confidence, it builds even more. It's peaceful. It's more pleasurable. You feel more healthy, less stressed. You sleep better. In the Bible it says, "For there the Lord has commanded blessing for evermore when brothers dwell together in unity." You've heard the statement, team, together, everyone achieves more. There is strength in unity. Remember what happened when there was disunity with the footballers? There's strength in unity. It goes on to say, it makes us more effective. It goes in Ecclesiastes to say, 2 are better than 1. If you fall in a ditch, someone can pull you out. It goes, if you agree in prayer and ask anything, with 2 or 3 are gathered in unity, the Father answers prayer. By this, all men will know that you are my disciples. When, like the monks, when there was an atmosphere of change, people were drawn. By this, by the way we change, by the way we are, people will be drawn and know that we're followers of Jesus. It's how we're intended to be. Just back in the Garden of Eden, community is how we're intended to be. When we're in unity, we honour God. It's pleasing to God. And in James, it says this in the Message Bible. And it's headed, Healthy, Robust Community. Real wisdom, God's wisdom, begins with a holy life and is characterised by getting along with others. It is gentle and reasonable, overflowing with mercy and blessings. It's not hot one day and cold the next. It's not two-faced. You can develop a healthy, robust community that lives right with God and it enjoys its results only if you do the hard work of getting along with each other, treating each other with dignity and honour. So, why be united? It was Jesus' last prayer. It's the greatest commandment. It's what we were created and made for. It's how the perfect Trinity live, and we're invited into it. And by this, may all know that Jesus is the one and is the way.
Darkness, we were waiting without hope, without light.